Welcome to a literary detective story. Today we unravel the curious case of Viktor Erofeev and his supposed invention of Canadian literature for a major Soviet academic project. Was it a bold act of creative rebellion or just a myth Erofeev spun later in life? We'll explore the origins of this story, the context of Soviet literary scholarship, and why this tale has fascinated readers and critics alike. Get ready to dive into a world where fact and fiction blur and where the boundaries of academic honesty and literary creativity are put to the test. Let's begin our journey by understanding who Viktor Erofeev is and why his story matters. Viktor Erofeev is a renowned Russian writer and television host, but his early career was marked by controversy. As the son of a high-ranking diplomat, he enjoyed a privileged position, but things changed after he helped compile the uncensored almanac Metropole. This act of defiance led to his dismissal from the Institute of World Literature, though he was later reinstated. Erofeev claims he was then exiled to work on Canadian literature, a field supposedly so obscure in the Soviet Union that he had to invent it from scratch. But is this really what happened, or is there more to the story? According to Erofeev's own memoirs, he faced a daunting task: write about Canadian literature with almost no resources. He described scouring the foreign literature library, finding only scraps of information, and being warned not to approach the Canadian embassy. With a looming deadline, Erofeev claims he began inventing biographies, literary debates, and even novel plots, weaving in allusions to his own experiences with Soviet censorship. But how much of this is true? Did he really fabricate an entire chapter of world literary history, or is this another layer of literary performance? Let's dig into the evidence. Scholars have compared Erofeev's chapters in the history of world literature with actual Canadian literary works. Surprisingly, most of the content matches real authors, books, and events. For example, his summary of Laura Conan's Anglin de Montbrun accurately reflects the novel's plot and structure. Even the cited poetry and historical references check out. So if Erofeev did invent anything, it was done with remarkable fidelity to reality. This raises the question, was his story of invention itself a kind of literary hoax? Contrary to Erofeev's claims of an information vacuum, researchers found that resources on Canadian literature were available in Moscow at the time. Books in both English and French, as well as encyclopedic entries, could be accessed by determined scholars. Erofeev likely had more to work with than he let on. His narrative of desperate invention may have been exaggerated for dramatic effect, aligning with his later persona as a rebellious writer who blurs the lines between fact and fiction. Erofeev's writing on Canadian literature is peppered with subtle references to Soviet literary politics. For instance, he draws parallels between the suppression of Canadian literary journals and the fate of Soviet publications like Leningrad. He also weaves in themes of exile, censorship, and missed opportunities, echoing his own experiences. These allusions suggest that, even if he didn't invent Canadian literature, he used the assignment as a canvas for exploring broader issues of creativity and repression. The heart of this story is the concept of mystification, deliberately blurring the line between truth and fiction. Erofeev's later confessions about inventing Canadian literature may themselves be a form of literary play, challenging the authority of academic scholarship and highlighting the constructed nature of literary history. Claiming to have fabricated his research, Erofeev invites us to question not just his own work, but the reliability of all literary histories. Whether or not Erofeev truly invented his chapters, his story raises important questions about the nature of literary scholarship. Is literary history just another form of storytelling? Can a writer's creative approach enrich our understanding of a national literature, or does it undermine academic integrity? Erofeev's case forces us to confront the tension between creativity and accuracy, and to reflect on the value we place on truth in both literature and scholarship. In the end, the real mystery isn't whether Viktor Erofeev invented Canadian literature, but why the story continues to captivate us. Perhaps it's because it speaks to universal anxieties about authenticity, authority, and the power of narrative. Erofeev's tale, whether fact, fiction, or something in between, reminds us that literature is always shaped by those who write about it, and that the boundaries between truth and invention are often more porous than we'd like to admit. Thanks for joining us on this literary investigation.